Part 36. Global Copy, My Talent is Called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 351. Zyopija saw that some viewers were confused about the previous fight between Lu Zyoki and Baldhead, and thought that Zyopija was forcibly suppressing Lu's combat power, so I will reply here. Not really. First of all, during the fight, my description was quite brief. I only said that I used 10,000 swords to return to the sect and was blocked by the opponent. I switched to the fire form to break through the opponent's defense, but was repelled by someone's backhand. The description is relatively simple, but Zyopija didn't explain it clearly. In fact, everyone can understand that Lu Zyoki used his ultimate move to hit it, and the result was that he didn't break the defense. It's not that Lu Zyoki didn't use CD-free skills to crazily refresh, but he was the one who used it. Zyopija didn't emphasize it, he just said overwhelming sword gang, and it had no effect even after using it. Secondly, there are indeed some problems that make Zhuangwen unhappy. Zyopija can only try his best to correct it. To be honest, Zyopija is not very good at describing this kind of fighting scenes, and there is no way to write the battle vividly, and although this is a semi-invincible novel, but we can't have a few people who can compete with the protagonist, right? Finally, the monks are not villains. They fought with Lu for a reason, which will be discussed later, and they were able to get into the situation with Lu through tricks. It was not because their actual combat power was so terrifying. Last sentence. Don't think that Zyopija is talking too much nonsense. In fact, I really took a look at everyone's opinions after reading it. Everyone's reaction was not good, and Zyopija felt quite uncomfortable. The following is the text. But Lu Zyoki didn't have time to think about these issues. Because his eyes were attracted by Zhao Sueking in front of him. A lonely man and a widow lived together in a room, barely considered a room, cuddling with each other. It was also difficult for Lu Zyoki not to focus on Zhao Sueking. In addition, Zhao Sueking was seriously injured and fell into a coma, and was taken care of by Lu Zyoki. It would seem a bit disrespectful not to do something at this time. What's more, he is not worse than a beast. It's just that his focus is a little different from ordinary people. Because he had been staring at Zhao Sueking's shoulder for a long time, lost in thought. Zhao Sueking was wearing relatively cool clothes at the moment. There was a robe outside before, but it was damaged in the successive battles. First, in order to cut off the damaged areas of the clothes, and secondly, to facilitate movement, Zhao Sueking's clothes were modified into a suspender dress, and she only relied on a strong rope around her neck to lift the clothes up. In this way, the flawless white shoulders and delicate collarbones are clearly visible. It looks good, but Lu Zyoki also discovered the bright spots. Why doesn't this girl have shoulder straps inside her clothes? Could it be that she wasn't wearing anything? No, how is that possible? I have to figure out such an important thing. Thinking of this, Lu Zyoki stretched out his claws of Lushan in an upright manner. Before Lu Zyoki could reach in, she heard a cold voice, "What are you doing?" Lu Zyoki's body trembled, and she raised her head and met Zhao Sueking's indifferent eyes. "Nothing. I'm just checking your health," Lu Zyoki said confidently. Zhao Sueking glanced at him and said with a slightly trembling voice, "I almost believed it, if you hadn't put your hand on my chest now." She did not struggle, but shrank her body, curling up into Lu Zyoki's arms and suddenly asked, "Am I a burden?" Zhao Sueking's voice was a little lazy, with a hint of disappointment. Seems a little confused and decadent. She remembered that she had worked hard for more than half a year, but in the end she could only follow Lu Zyoki in the competition. Let alone join the battle, she could not even bear the aftermath of the battle. She felt disappointed and powerless inside. Seeing that she was in such a low mood, Lu Zyoki ignored the charming atmosphere and quickly took her hand and said gently, "How could it be? Without you, I might have been defeated by those bald guys. Furthermore, our Xueqing is smart, beautiful, capable, and from a good family. Who dares to say that you are a burden? I, Lu Zhaoqi, will be the first to fight with him. Seeing that Zhao Xueqing's mood still didn't improve, he quickly changed the subject and said, by the way, what happened before? Why did you suddenly change into something else? And you were so powerful that you wiped out those smelly monks in one go? Also, what do you mean by those words? What words? Zhao Xueqing still had a trace of confusion in her eyes, as if she didn't know what Lu Zhaoqi was talking about. Lu Zhaoqi recounted what happened before to Zhao Xueqing. She was silent for a moment and then said, I don't know. She's not me. To be precise, it's not me now. With that said, Zhao Xueqing fumbled for a mirror from her arms. This mirror is unremarkable, as if it is an antique from 100 years ago. However, it has been well protected, and apart from the traces left by time, there has not been much wear and tear. Lu Zhaoqi noticed that there was a crack on the mirror surface that almost split the entire mirror into two. This is Kunwu mirror, Zhao Xueqing explained. It is a family heirloom of our Zhao family. It has the power to travel through time and space, and can reflect my future self into reality. Zhao Xueqing said. However, the future body summoned by this mirror is not fixed. The more powerful the future body is and the longer it lasts, the more terrifying the consumption will be. Previously, she was attacked by a few young men from the Jizhu female adventurer team. It was with the help of the power of this mirror that she was able to suppress the opponent even though she was seriously injured. Although the future body she reflected at the time was not particularly powerful, after it was over, Zhao Xueqing also used up a lot of strength for it. And the price Zhao Xueqing paid to deal with the future bodies summoned by those bald heads was even more exaggerated, almost draining her completely. That's why Lu Zhaoqi saw that the skin all over her body was almost turning transparent. When the reflected future body only made one move, if the fight lasted for a while, Zhao Xueqing would be gone. This is not an adjective, but if it continues, she will really be drained completely. It was also Lu Zhaoqi's mana that had part of the power of rules, which offset the price. Otherwise, Zhao Xueqing's body would have been completely cold by now, let alone recovery. Only then did Lu Zhaoqi discover a problem. He actually couldn't see the properties of this so-called Kunwu mirror. This shows that this mirror is a local product and not a copy. It is precisely because of this that this treasure was able to escape the detection of the barrier and was brought into the competition by Zhao Xueqing. This shows one more thing, this world originally had extraordinary power. And this mirror named Kunwu is a masterpiece of local extraordinary power. It's just that I don't know why this extraordinary power has completely dissipated in modern times. Instead, it was invaded by external forces and became what it is now. The horror in Lu Zhaoqi's heart was like a surging wave that could not subside for a long time. Unlike Zhao Xueqing, he knew some secrets. Zhao Xueqing only thought that this heirloom was some kind of magical treasure, similar to a prop that contained the power of rules. The level is probably like the mythical level. But Lu Zhaoqi was different. He recognized the difference of this thing at a glance. Thus inferring this horrifying truth, Lu Zhaoqi carefully touched the crack on the mirror. The touch of the fingertips proved that the texture of this thing seemed to be some kind of metal. He asked, "How do you usually carry such a big thing with you?" Zhao Xueqing demonstrated to him. Like this. She placed the mirror against her chest, and the mirror immediately turned into a halo of light that penetrated Zhao Xueqing's body. The mirror recognizes its owner. Only the blood of the Zhao family can drive its ability. And in our Zhao family, I am the only one who can control it. Zhao Xueqing paused and said with a complicated expression, "That's why they couldn't wait to drive me out." Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 352. It's ridiculous to say that. Zhao Xueqing has one elder brother and one younger brother, both born to her mistress. In addition, there are several eldest brothers, eldest sisters, and younger brothers and sisters. All of them have outstanding talents and extraordinary strength. However, none of this generation's favorites who are eligible to be selected as successors can attract the Zhao family's inherited treasure Kunwu mirror. On the contrary, this unremarkable illegitimate daughter of the Zhao family came back to worship her ancestors on the day she turned 18. She effortlessly resonated with the Kunwu mirror and successfully recognized the treasure as its owner. That's exactly what it is. Only then would she be regarded as a thorn in the flesh by the Zhao family's mistress. Although the family position has always been passed down to the male rather than the female, and the elder rather than the younger, not to mention that Zhao Xueqing's own identity is very embarrassing, as an illegitimate daughter who is not recognized. It should not have much to do with the Zhao family. But it's hard to figure out what the head of the Zhao family thinks about the lack of guarantees. He had insisted on including Zhao Xueqing in the genealogy from the beginning. Although everyone strongly opposed it, he still got his wish after many twists and turns. Now what if he insists on passing the throne to Zhao Xueqing, who has inherited the power of the treasure? So the mistress, who had a sense of crisis, began to use means. That's how this bet came about. If Zhao Xueqing loses and does not achieve the top 10 results in the global adventurer competition, then she will have to hand over the Kunwu mirror and marry into the Wang family. And if Zhao Xueqing wins, she can truly gain a foothold in the Zhao family and have the right to speak. Of course, Zhao Xueqing would not explain these twists and turns to Lu Zhaoqi in detail, but would simply mention them. Apart from the people involved, how can anyone else understand the frustration and sadness involved? So he picked himself up and kept going. Even Lu Zhaoqi didn't even bother to activate his active skills, just a simple look. After all, Lu Zhaoqi really didn't believe it. How could this young man dare to attack him in front of everyone and under the noses of other Sun Yao adventurers? I slept directly until the blazing sun was in the sky. Unless the second fifth boy Rieo takes action in person, they can only watch from outside the barrier, and there is nothing they can do to Lu Zhaoqi. Through perception, Lu Zhaoqi discovered that Zhao Xueqing's weak state had been completely lifted. He slowly withdrew his magic power, and Zhao Xueqing gradually woke up. The continuous operation of magic power into Zhao Xueqing's body for a long time was undoubtedly a huge test for Lu Zhaoqi's mental strength. The main reason is that he is holding a sweet-smelling girl in his arms. After 5 kills, Lu Zhaoqi only felt a tremor in his tiger body, and felt a sense of dullness. However, the effect is quite significant. At least Zhao Xueqing's transparent skin has returned to a normal human flesh color. Perhaps she was too weak. Although Zhao Xueqing had just woken up from a coma, she was still low on energy. She only talked for a short while and then fell asleep in Lu Zhaoqi's arms. After repelling the cultists' offensive, Lu Zhaoqi estimated that the guys hiding in the dark were at the end of their rope. There are almost no adventurers of the same age who can pose a threat to Lu Zhaoqi. Even if there are, they must be Fei Mao Feng Xiao. Although serious injuries to one's vitality are unavoidable, there are no permanent wounds that cannot be cured. After all, in this enchantment, even if you kill 5 times, you won't be able to recharge or get internet fees. Even the beautiful network administrator's sister can bring you a drink. However, Zhao Xueqing was completely unable to participate in the next battle, and even marginal OB became a problem. Although Lu Zhaoqi could imagine the difficulties Zhao Xueqing had faced in the past 6 months, he could not say anything thoughtful and could only hold her tightly in his arms to comfort her. The sword intention he understood through his own skills was combined with his magic power to form a strong energy, and he killed these water ghosts in an instant, turning them into real water ghosts worthy of the name. In this place, Lu Zhaoqi actually met a team hiding in the water to ambush others. That is to kill directly to the center of the barrier, and then wait for the circle to shrink and that's it. Suddenly he was ready to move. But Lu Xiaoqi didn't panic at all. It's a pity that before they could put the ideas in their minds into practice, they were sent out of the competition by Lu Xiaoqi's sword energy. The more high profile he behaves and attracts more people's attention, the safer he is. The transition of the scene was still so abrupt. Lu Xiaoqi stepped out from the wilderness to the seaside. Lu Xiaoqi hugged Zhao Xueqing and ran all the way, and soon passed through the wasteland and entered the next scene. Of course Lu Xiaoqi doesn't covet this. After all, battles like the one before were extremely rare. Regarding this situation, it shouldn't be a big problem for Lu Xiaoqi to shamelessly take Zhao Xueqing to see Wang Yanran after they go out. Seeing that there are only two people in this team, Lu Xiaoqi and the others, even one of them, Zhao Xueqing, seems to have difficulty moving and needs another person to hold her. So what Lu Xiaoqi has to do next is very simple. Hey, it's not interesting. I'm not doing well today, so I'll just right here keep it short. After all, I'm so cute. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 353. The endless blue sea, golden, sun-drenched beaches, as well as ships stranded on the beach and countless shells. If it were outside the barrier, this would definitely be a good place for vacation. But within the barrier, it has become a territory for many adventurers to snatch resources. However, Lu Xiaoqi didn't have that free time. He pulled Zhao Xueqing and walked on the beach as if taking a leisurely stroll. All the adventurers who rushed up to see the two of them had a wrong idea were able to lie down successfully. Joke. How slow it is to collect resources by hand. There is no way to kill people and get goods quickly. Lu Xiaoqi just walked around the beach and harvested countless resources and props. He even had a set of soul rings together, and then he started to combine them 5 by 5. He directly created a legendary level purple soul ring, which can directly increase the range of his designated skills tenfold. Now it's time. The scale that Lu Xiaoqi could achieve by releasing 10,000 swords returned to the sect originally only required 10 times, but now only 1 time is enough. If you are lucky enough to trigger everything is allowed with 9 times the probability, then Lu Xiaoqi releasing 10,000 swords returning to the sect once is equivalent to releasing it 90 times. Not to mention the beauty. But for Lu Xiaoqi, these are all false. No matter how large the range of the skill is, if the enemy you face has no defense at all, releasing it 10,000 times will make no difference. He originally thought that with his attack attributes at full strength, there would be no existence in the world that could prevent him from breaking through his defenses, except for the invincible state, but the appearance of the group of monks sounded the alarm for him. Lu Xiaoqi relies on her natural ability and her own opportunities to crush in a majestic way. To put it bluntly, she uses one force to subjugate 10 wisdoms and defeat all methods. But in fact, the water in this world seems to be deeper than he imagined, and all kinds of weird methods are emerging one after another. For example, the methods used by those bald heads, as well as the abilities of the cultists that were not in the conventional routine, even included the Kunwu mirror that Zhao Xueqing took out. These things were beyond Lu Xiaoqi's expectations. He realized that he was far from being as invincible as he thought. Although he didn't say it on the surface, he was a little more eager in his heart. So he stepped up his understanding of the power of rules. Lu Xiaoqi's current realm is stuck at the peak of the golden core. As long as he makes a slight breakthrough and enters the realm of Yuan Shen, his strength will undergo a qualitative change. Not to mention that the quality of the magic power will be greatly enhanced, and the speed of refining the 5-color sacred stone will also be increased. Not to mention that one's skills can also be taken a step further. Only then will he be able to see the world as invincible. They really punched Nanshan nursing home, kicked Bihai kindergarten, and yelled at the central cemetery. No one dared to gasp loudly. After a killing spree, the beach was filled with blood. In this field of corpses, Luzaoki, who had no chance of killing the enemy, was spotless and pulled Zhao Xueqing out of the scene without changing her expression. At this time, the mist shrank faster and faster, almost catching up with Luzaoki and the others. Along the way, Luzaoki sensed that the number of teams gradually increased. After all, we are all heading towards the same destination, so it is not surprising that we meet on the way. But it was different from what Luzaoki imagined. These teams did not start shouting and killing each other in an attempt to kill each other's explosive equipment as soon as they met. Instead, they looked at each other warily, then branched off and continued moving forward. This is not surprising. After all, it is really not a good idea to start a war rashly without knowing the opponent's strength. When two tigers fight, one of them will be injured. If another Oriole like Luzaoki emerges to reap the benefits, wouldn't it mean that he loses his wife and loses his troops? A man who Luzaoki didn't know came out of it. He looked at Luzaoki and said angrily, "What do you want to do?" Zhao Xueqing looked at the scene with some confusion. As for those foreigners who were physically and psychologically traumatized by this, Luzaoki raised her eyebrows, took out her long sword, and prepared to strike. Of course she won't understand. This is just a man's final stubbornness in front of the girl he likes. Simply doing the same thing without stopping, Luzaoki said very simply, "I planted this mountain and planted this tree. If you want to live from now on, leave money to buy the road." Isn't the prop of love unique to Team Aries? Although his senses did not notice anything unusual, he still walked over confidently, kicked the haystack and said, "Are you going to come out on your own or shall I pull you out?" Luzaoki, on the other hand, took stock of his gains with satisfaction. He suddenly felt a little embarrassed. If Luzaoki's prediction was correct, the center of the barrier should be filled with adventurers at this moment, and maybe the teams that couldn't calm down had already started a melee with each other. She didn't know how Luzaoki discovered this group of people. She had never experienced that dark fight with Luzaoki, so naturally she didn't know the mystery of this bush. But she didn't quite understand. Before, Luzaoki had always followed the principle of "don't offend me and I won't offend others." Why did he deliberately find out these guys who were hiding well and torture them like this? Rustling, the grass began to shake. He shouted, but there was no response from the haystack. Luzaoki's expression changed. He glanced up and saw several very familiar haystacks. As for the Laolu team, they were lurking just like in the previous fort battles, quietly waiting for the opportunity to take action. Then a reluctant voice came from inside, "Stop. Foreigner?" Then he added a lame eagle language, "Robbery." Walking and stopping along the way, Luzaoki went through 3 scenes in less than a day, and was near the finals. In response, Luzaoki smiled disdainfully and rushed forward unhurriedly with Zhao Xueqing. Several crooked nuts who jumped out of the grass and planned to teach Luzaoki a lesson were pulled out naked by him, leaving only a piece of their underpants, and they huddled together tremblingly. So she only thought that Luzaoki had judged that there was someone inside through some means, just like he had noticed something was wrong before entering the oasis. "You can't say to this foreigner, 'I'm sorry, I got the wrong person,' right?" Luzaoki looked stunned. Because the locator he was wearing lit up. If he encounters a team with only 2 Luzaoki trying to bully the smaller ones, he will wave his hand and tell them what cruelty means. When he said these words, the outcome was already determined. "Sorry, what does it have to do with me?" This shows that his good teammates are hiding nearby, quietly surviving. Luzaoki suddenly stopped. So they unanimously chose to rush to the center of the barrier first, intending to complete the final decisive battle there. And if she knew, she wouldn't understand Luzaoki, but would only laugh secretly in her heart at Luzaoki's shameless face, which is so cute. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying boy has bad luck. Chapter 354. Let's leave aside this group of pitiful foreigners who were tortured by Luzioki. Luzioki went west and met at least 5 more teams. Except for the 2 teams that were rushing towards the center of the barrier, the remaining 3 teams were sneaking into hiding, planning to wait until they were almost done before going to harvest. Luzioki ignored these people. After tinkering for a long time, he finally figured out how to use the locator in his hand and rushed towards the Forbidden Summit team. Far away, he heard a deafening explosion. The noise sounded a bit like the movement caused by Lin Qingqing's ultimate move. Luzioki raised her eyebrows and rushed over with Zhao Sueking. As expected, the fighting party was none other than the Forbidden Peak team. Fighting them was a group of adventurers that Luzioki was very familiar with. It is one of the special professions that director who had introduced to them before, berserker. These guys were bare-chested, wielding heavy weapons, yelling and fighting with Zhang Yang. Yes, you are not mistaken. Everyone in this team will fight Zhang Yang together. At this moment, Zhang Yang had already entered the Little Silver Man state. Using his super defense and superb martial arts, he was still able to fight 1 versus 5. But if that was the case, this team of berserkers should have been captured by the Forbidden Peak team long ago. As a result, the situation at the scene was exactly the opposite. The Forbidden City team was beaten to the point of retreat, and the situation was full of dangers. The reason is very simple, because in addition to these 5 berserkers, there are 3 tank warriors holding tower shields in front of them to resist Liu Yang's human sea tactics. There were also 2 assassins entangled with Li Laban on the scene. The 3 turned into 3 phantoms and chased each other on the field. It was obvious that Li Laban was the one who suffered the loss. He was chased by the opponent and he always wanted to use his talents. They tried to escape, but they were always forcibly interrupted by the other party and had to get entangled together. And Lin Qingqing was not idle either. She transformed into a turret with the opponent's magic profession and used their skills to fight wildly. Although the opponent's firepower was far inferior to Lin Qingqing's, their shield was as thick as a turtle shell. Lin Qingqing's side, even the ultimate move failed to break through his defense. It seemed that the only way to determine the outcome was to forcefully exhaust the opponent's energy. In addition, the big sword girl who was picked up by Zhang Yang to join the team had fallen into a coma and was lying aside. Her huge broken blade, which was almost always in her hand, was knocked away far away and was inserted diagonally into the mountain on the side. In the rock, it seemed that he had been tricked by the opponent and was injured by the focused fire attack. As for Team Ares, Luzioki took a closer look and found no trace of them. I don't know if he ran away or something happened. Luzioki did not hide her movements and walked over in a swaggering manner. Lin Qingqing was the first person to see Luzioki. She was concentrating on chanting spells, but when she glanced around, she found a familiar figure next to her. She was overjoyed and said, "Come here and help." When she was distracted, the other party immediately seized the opportunity and fired a series of magic bullets towards her head and face. Although the power of this magic bullet is average, its advantage is that it can be activated very quickly, and it can be released instantly with only a little training. Although this thing does not pose a fatal threat to thick-skinned warriors and even ranger-type adventurers like Li Laban, Lin Qingqing is a crispy little mage. If she is hit by such a series of magic bullets, she will be killed. Sin. Lin Qingqing was not completely unable to deal with this thing, but the previous shield had been exhausted in the duel. Originally, she did not have to worry about her own safety with the help of strong firepower, but she did not expect that Luzioki's appearance made her he couldn't help but pause, and this distraction revealed a fatal flaw. Seeing that the opponent's attack was about to bloom on Lin Qingqing's delicate face, the opponent even raised the corners of his mouth slightly. But Lin Qingqing didn't panic at all, and even showed sympathetic eyes towards the other party. Because the next moment, Luzioki stood between the magic bullet and Lin Qingqing. He didn't even bother to use forced vibration sword. The mana flowed in the palm of his hand and he slightly used the power of the newly understood rules, and slapped him. This series of magic bullets accelerated and flew back. Nani? The other party was immediately shocked, even Japanese language broke out. But soon he wouldn't have to be shocked anymore. Because these magic bullets emitted by himself penetrated his shield like a bamboo, and directly submerged him in the explosion. Luzaoki, who did this, only spent a small amount of mana. At this moment, the competition in the barrier is coming to an end. The competition lasted 3 days, and only the last half day is left. After Luzaoki went through the series of changes, he was tired of it. So he showed his cards and stopped pretending. I, Luzaoki, am to be number 1. Be number 1. He didn't want to get entangled with these people anymore, so he condensed his lifelong cultivation into a mighty force that soared into the sky and exploded. In the King of Fighters game, this gesture can be called explosion. In the explosion state, Luzaoki not only has the speed of mana flow reaching the extreme, but also the attributes of her body have also increased to a whole new level with the blessing of this state. The most important thing is that Luzaoki, who fired the explosive energy, even if he said nothing and stood motionless, made the opponent feel an invisible and fatal threat, similar to the effect of Long Wei. They all stopped fighting and retreated together, watching with vigilance the man who suddenly appeared in the middle of the battlefield. As soon as these people retreated and fought with less, the exhausted Forbidden Peak team suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. However, Zhang Yang and the others did not continue to rush forward to fight with each other. Instead, they retreated behind Luzaoki and said to Luzaoki as if they were complaining, "Xiaoqi, these guys are ambushing us. And he's so shameless, using his power to bully the few." Zhang Yang spat angrily. Several people also looked at Luzaoki eagerly, as if they were letting Luzaoki make the decision for them. Luzaoki. In response, he could only glance at the other party lightly, and slowly uttered 4 big words in his mouth. 10,000 swords returned to the clan. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 355. After cleaning up this bunch of miscellaneous fish whose authors couldn't even be bothered to name, Luzaoki conveniently threw a stars shining to everyone. After finishing the matter, he asked everyone about the specific situation. Only then did we learn that the Ares team had been wiped out. The reason is simple. After Luzaoki left, these restless guys started to become restless. The remaining 3 people contacted Dedeo Mei and planned to join forces with her to rebel against the Forbidden City. It turns out these guys actually understand Goose language. Even the language of the Dragon Kingdom is not as bad as it appeared before. In order to hide themselves, they deliberately pretended to be crazy and acted stupidly in an attempt to lower everyone's defensiveness. In fact, they were quite successful at this point, mainly because Luzaoki had absolute strength and didn't worry about what trouble these people might cause. Although the 3 of them are not very good at fighting, they are full of crooked ideas and have no morality or loyalty at all. When you are strong, he will grovel and beg for mercy. When the sun sets on you, he will immediately change his face, become greedy and vicious. They originally poisoned the food and planned to join forces with Big Sword Girl to wipe out the Forbidden Peak team in one fell swoop. In order to prevent everyone from sending a distress signal to Luzaoki, they also created a positioning device that could interfere with and destroy Liu Yang's creation. Device. What he didn't expect was that all their actions were noticed by Li Laban. What was even more unexpected was that Dedeo girl hated this kind of betrayal and turned on the violent mode directly towards them, regardless of the huge profits they promised. The result is obvious. The remaining 3 members of the Ares team failed in their rebellion. They didn't even have a chance to beg for mercy, and were turned into powder by the Big Sword Girl wielding the broken blade. After this battle, Daedaome proved herself with actions and successfully integrated into the small group of Forbidden City. Although they still couldn't understand each other, they got along much more harmoniously. The locator also had various problems due to the interference of the three people. Although it was repaired by Liu Yang later, due to debugging problems, there was a slight error with the locator in Liu Xiaoqi's hand, and the positioning was slightly inaccurate. This is also the reason why Liu Xiaoqi targeted others before. After learning the fate of these people, Liu Xiaoqi was a little speechless. Isn't it bad to live, if you have to seek death? If you are honest, brother, wouldn't I just take you to win? You have to show off your lower IQ at every turn. After being treated by Liu Xiaoqi, Daedaome woke up from her coma with a groan. However, her fighting qualities were excellent. With just a hint of confusion in her eyes, she immediately turned over and climbed up. Her muscles were tense and she was already in a fighting state. But when she saw the current situation clearly, she immediately relaxed her muscles and let out a long breath. Let's not talk about how many people clean the battlefield. After a short rest, the 7 people set off again. The further you go, the more people there are and the more intense the fighting you encounter. All kinds of evil tricks were also used, which opened everyone's eyes. But in the face of the powerful strength of Liu Xiaoqi and others, all schemes are just paper tigers, which can be defeated with one sword. A few people were walking around, stopping to clean up the battlefield. Soon we arrived at the center of the battlefield. The strange thing is that the number of teams here far exceeds that of the peripheral ones, but there is no fight. There wasn't even an argument. It's like the center of a storm, far calmer than outside. But this is just the prelude to the storm. In fact, the teams that dare to appear here are undoubtedly teams that are very confident in their team's strength. And the more this happens, the less they dare to fight other teams easily. The teams on the outside are fighting fiercely because they know in their hearts that their own strength is not good enough and they cannot make it into the inner circle. It is better to pick up some bargains outside to increase their team's rating, and then they will be killed by others. It won't look so ugly on the face. No matter what, it is better than being swallowed up by the fog. The teams in the inner circle have no worries about mist, but their desire for ranking far exceeds that of the teams on the outside. They not only want to get a ranking, but also want to get a good ranking. But in fact, we can't say that there is no difference in strength between us until now, but it is definitely not very different. What if you rashly start a fight with other teams, not to mention that your own strength is not as good as others and you are directly eliminated? Even if your strength is slightly better, you will fall into the eyes of other teams and become the leader. Countless endless swords are condensed out of thin air, overwhelming, thrilling and shocking. This truth is very simple, even Wei Quarren understands it. Any tree that is beautiful in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. You can tell a little bit about it from your body shape and appearance. The first thing he did was to wave his hand and wink at everyone. Stand back, I'm going to start filling the cups. With mana surging all over his body, he led his party to the center of the inner circle with great swagger. Liu Xiaoqi had no interest in them. Under Liu Xiaoqi's command, they formed a hemisphere and directly enveloped the entire inner circle. If you don't want to come in, never come in. Even if they are all Asians, there are some differences between people from different countries. How could I give you this opportunity? Of course, this is because the fog is still far away from them. That's why the scene fell into a brief period of peace. I just paid a little attention and saw that 2 of the teams with yellow skin and black hair seemed to be other teams from the Dragon Kingdom. But Liu Xiaoqi didn't look down on them just because they were both from the Dragon Kingdom team. They only looked at Liu Xiaoqi and the others' intrusion with interest. Legendary level Purple Soul Ring plus all things are allowed plus 10,000 swords return to the clan plus 10,000 swords return to the clan plus 10,000 swords return to the clan plus 10,000 swords return to the clan. The next moment, he activated his skills instantly. They moved a few rocks and sat bored with their teammates, seemingly very relaxed. Luzaoki smiled coldly and thought in her mind. In response, Luzaoki could only smile disdainfully. Completely isolated from the outside world. So after he appeared in the center of the circle, he only did two things. There is no doubt that before Luzaoki's future, these four teams are the strongest. The adventurers who appeared on his route were ejected far away by an invisible force. These people could not resist his magic. Faced with his overbearing behavior, they could only dare to be angry but dare not speak out. There are only four teams in this place. But after Luzaoki arrived, the situation changed. This time, those who had not come in originally, and those who had planned to lurk around the outside to fish in troubled waters, could not come in at all. For example, the Japanese country, which had a good life when they were young, is generally a bit foreign because they like to sit on their knees, and their image is a bit vulgar. Another example is the Bangsa country. Their arrogant demeanor can make you think of them as a frog in the well even if they don't say anything. Get in touch. Once the fog approaches here, they will have to fight. In front of his immortal sword, all living beings are equal. And he tried his best. Be the sixth child? Want to trick me into someone? Because there is only one strongest team, and that is the Forbidden City. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 356. Even though he, Luzaoki, doesn't know much about formations, he can't use formations to trap everyone like the man with earrings who has been fighting for dozens of chapters. But the skills are not enough and the strength is forced. I don't know how to use formations, so I just need a sword cage out of hand. The eye-catching Luzaoki, who was originally located in the center of the field, suddenly became the only focus of the audience. Everyone was a little shocked by the methods he showed. There are also teams on the edge of the field who don't believe in this evil and insist on using their own flesh and blood to challenge the authority of Luzaoki's immortal Jian gang. Of course, because the results were too tragic, they will not be shown here. It was precisely because of the lessons learned from these teams that everyone was shocked by the methods Luzaoki used, and the originally quiet inner circle suddenly became noisy. Luzaoki frowned slightly, moved her lips slightly, and her clear voice mixed with powerful magic instantly covered the entire audience. Quiet. Although he only said two words, it seemed as if he had magic power that made everyone present involuntarily stop the commotion. The scene quickly became quiet, even quieter than before. Even if a pin drops to the ground, it can be clearly heard. Of course, he didn't really achieve this with any magic power, but the simplest force deterrence. With his powerful and far superior strength, everyone had to obey his orders. Even if someone doesn't understand Longkuyu, they are not fools. They can roughly guess the meaning of Luzaoki's words by looking at other people's faces. Luzaoki looked around with satisfaction, and continued to speak in Long Mandarin. Tell you two pieces of news, one good news and one bad news. The bad news is, there are cultists who have infiltrated this game. Everyone was in an uproar. Even if everyone has not seen it with their own eyes, they have already heard about the nature of the cultists. Just like the KB elements in Luzaoki's original world, as long as they are mentioned, nothing is simple. It can be said that they are willing to take responsibility for all the bad things in the world and pay for all the evil people. Even if there is a high probability that they will not do this thing, as long as they are mentioned, everyone can't help but feel that it is reasonable. Luzaoki did not suppress their voices this time, but continued, and the good news is, I have killed all these cultists who sneaked in. Everyone. Play. Many people looked at him unconvinced and thought, you are amazing because of your big fists. If there are cultists, there are cultists. How do I know if the ones you killed are real cultists? If Luzioki knew what they were thinking, he would probably happily reply, hey. You are right, a big fist means something great. Do whatever you want, do whatever you want. However, he didn't pay attention to the expressions and thoughts of these people at all, but continued to say slowly, but we have some mole in our midst. This move certainly meant to vent his emotions, but more importantly, he was also honing his skills with the help of many of the most elite adventurers of his generation. In other words, just bored and wanting to see rivers of blood flowing. Take the strengths of others and use them for your own use. So seeing everyone's shocked and angry expressions, he just showed a bright smile, and a long sword with a ruthless sword intent popped out from his cuff. Of course, since so many adventurers are not chickens, Luzioki still kills them wantonly among the crowd. Even the attacks they hit on him, apart from helping him stack armor, permanently increasing his defense, didn't even damage his clothes at all. In fact, Luzioki just used this excuse to start a happy fight. Luzioki didn't use too many skills, just one person and one sword, one step at a time, killing each team so hard that they were retreating and unable to fight back. The battle didn't last long. Many people were so shocked by his shocking remarks that they immediately jumped up from the ground. His powerful perception ability can store everyone's most instinctive reactions in his mind when facing an attack. Some people panic and choose a way out, but more people do their best to show their most essential response when faced with this life-threatening attack. Ability. With the dance of the long sword, heads rolled. How could the always upright Mr. Lu not tell them the cause of their death? Luzioki paused and continued, so, after careful research, I decided to take the simplest way to handle this very serious matter. With a wave of his hand, blood spilled into the sky. Although many people actually didn't understand what Luzioki was talking about. Today's update is late, actually because I forgot to set the timer, I'm so sorry. Some of the adventurers participating in the competition have colluded with the cultists, and I can't tell who they are. He scanned the audience and said seriously, since I can't tell who is the mole, then I will assume that everyone sitting here is the mole. But it doesn't matter, Luzioki didn't really tell them. Luzioki clapped her hands together, kill you all. Let's start this fight immediately. But Luzioki did not use the immortal sword gang of 10,000 swords returning to the clan to directly obliterate everyone. After all, to Luzioki, everyone here is indeed a jerk. It only took a short time for everyone to burn one stick of incense. Many people don't know how long it takes to burn one stick of incense. In fact, there are many definitions. My setting here is one stick of incense equal 15 to 20 minutes. There is no need to hold on. Look. Just watch it. Hearing what Luzioki said, although everyone was doubtful, they couldn't help but separated from the surrounding teams to prevent these adventurers who might be ghosts from suddenly emerging. So from the shock and indignation at the beginning, to the panic and despair later. But Mr. Lu is too perverted. Once he activates the earth form of the power of the four poles, he will not move even if he stands there and allows everyone to attack him. In fact, he just used the power of Jian Gang to protect his teammates, then rushed into the crowd and started wreaking havoc. It is not righteous to punish someone without telling them. In fact, they have worked together to organize more than one wave of counterattacks. Everyone. All these eye-catching operations were seen by Luzioki and kept in mind, only to be gradually digested later and turned into his own use. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 357. Due to Luzioki's magic power to protect his body, even if he was killed over 100 times, his body would still be spotless, like a handsome young man. But everyone at the top of the Forbidden City, who had a panoramic view of everything that happened, couldn't help but their eyelids twitched wildly and they took a breath of cold air. Good guy. You really cut it from Nantianmen to Penglai East Road, with the knife in hand and down without even blinking. In fact, Lu Xiaoqi's eyes still felt a little sour after not blinking for such a long time. But what made him even more dizzy was the many try-it-or-die practical tips stored in his brain. There are many bloody scenes among them. In other words, he killed so many people that he almost vomited. Although Lu Xiaoqi still prefers fighting, he really can't appreciate this level of fighting. He is different from those Japanese people who had a good life and like to bully the weak. He doesn't like attacking those who are weak. Only through hardy battles with strong men can he learn more combat experience and improve his own strength. However, the existence of talent has made him gradually lose this happiness. Today he deliberately didn't use any big skills, but simply relied on his own attributes to fight just to regain this feeling. Even so, the result was a one-sided massacre. There is no way, for those adventurers who are generally in the early stage of moonlight, Lu Xiaoqi, who is equivalent to half a step of sunlight, does have crushing strength. What's more, he also has so many outrageous skills and passives. So he just made a slight move and he was already at the limit of this rank. Again. At that time, Lu had his hands on his hips and had no idea what an opponent was. Humph, let me be awesome for a while. JPG. However, this scene really confused everyone. Lu Xiaoqi swung his long sword, pulled out a handsome sword flower, smiled at the dumbfounded people and said, "Why are you standing there in a daze? Come over and clean up the mess." Seeing this smile, the remaining 5 people except Zhao Xueqing shuddered. Zhao Xueqing didn't have many expressions, mainly because she had been working hard to maintain her frosty image. After so many years, it was probably almost instinctive. Secondly, she had seen more perverted scenes when teaming up with Lu Xiaoqi before, such as the one where she directly beat everyone into powder. Therefore, she had already experienced the extent of Lu Xiaoqi's perversion, and was not surprised at all that he could reach this level. A few people didn't dare to delay, for fear that someone with red eyes would kill them all at once. But Li Laban couldn't help but muttered while working, "Why are you still collecting these things? The competition will be over soon." Lu Xiaoqi slapped him on the head, glared and said, "Just do what you are told to do." "What are you talking about?" Lin Qingqing's face turned pale. Among the others, she had the worst psychological quality and the weirdest temper. Looking at the stumps, blood, and organs scattered everywhere, she couldn't think of picking up the loot at all. Lu Xiaoqi didn't force her. Although Lu Xiaoqi keeps shouting about equality between men and women, to be honest, he still gives some preferential treatment to girls. It's not that some insect has got into the brain and is hungry and won't choose what to eat. It's just my own gentlemanly behavior. After a lot of work, Lu Xiaoqi was satisfied with the transformation from the legendary Purple Soul Ring to the mythical level. No matter if the season is about to end, my collection must be full. Just in time, the time to shrink the circle has arrived again. This time the shrinkage was extremely rapid, and the scope of the shrinkage was also very exaggerated. There were even many adventurers who were still fighting and were swallowed up by the endless white mist before they could even react. Countless teams that were rejected by the Immortal Sword Gang suddenly panicked. Because they have no retreat. In the front, Lu Xiaoqi used 10,000 swords to Gazong to form a sword gang barrier, and in the back, there was a mist that seemed to be slowing down and swallowing the disease. The key is that the adventurers in front have already used their lives to explain one thing to all those who come after, that is, the barrier formed by the sword gang is really difficult to withstand. When a mage fights a warrior, he is already at a disadvantage, not to mention that Zhao Xueqing is still injured. So they have to have someone take the initiative to be eliminated. After I finish writing this chapter, some people will probably accuse me of being stupid again. Humph, it's just stupid. At worst, I'll give you an apology. Everyone concentrated their fire, but they couldn't even shake one of the swords. Therefore, the rankings of the top 3 teams were decided in a very dramatic way, guessing. After all, the team that goes out last will definitely have a higher ranking than the team that goes out first. The order of elimination is particularly critical. Their situation is a little complicated. It is worth mentioning that the ranking of this team is not equal to the character score. This ranking will be more important to her, because the barrier will only be lifted when there is only one team left. After all, being able to reach this point is entirely due to Luzaoki's credit, and the other people at the Forbidden City can only say that there is no credit but hard work. He said calmly to everyone, "Have you decided? There are only 7 people on the field, but there are 3 teams. Therefore, after trying to no avail, everyone could only grit their teeth and turn the blame within their own ranks." Well, very simple and crude. Even before the fog spread here, the battle was over. And it's still a sentence that determines the outcome. But he ultimately left the decision to themselves. As long as the other teams are eliminated before the fog swallows this place, then even if they don't advance to the finals, it won't be too embarrassing. In the inner circle, Luzaoki slowly opened her eyes after sensing everything happening outside. So, before the fog swallowed them up, this group of adventurers who originally planned to be the 6th one started fighting like red-eyed gamblers. Therefore, the only ones who are eliminated are Zhao Sueking and De Daome. And it is definitely not possible for Luzaoki and his team to be eliminated. What they don't know is that the power of the immortal sword gang summoned by Luzaoki will continue to increase as time goes by, never ending. Only those whose teams are ranked in the top 20 will have this rating. Adventurers from teams below 20 will be eliminated directly, that is, only the top 100 adventurers will be ranked. Just unquestionable. They couldn't even break through their initial form, let alone the ever-increasingly powerful immortal sword gang. Except for Luzaoki's Forbidden Peak team, which is fully staffed, the remaining De Daome and Zhao Sueking are both polished commanders. Everyone nodded. Of course, this elimination will not be decided by a fight between Zhao Sueking and Big Sword Girl. The final rating of the adventurer will be based on the team's overall ranking, the adventurer's performance in the barrier, and the judge's comprehensive rating of the adventurer. Instead, those who rushed into Jiangang were turned into ashes almost instantly. The victorious adventurers leaned against the rocks in groups of 2s and 3s, watching in a daze as the mist quickly spread and swallowed them one by one. If Luzaoki was asked to choose, he would definitely prefer Zhao Sueking. This was not because he was nepotistic, but because he knew about Zhao Sueking's situation. Global copy, My talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 358. The winner is Zhao Sueking. The loser De Dao girl did not feel unwilling to do anything. She waved her hands towards everyone, showed a hearty smile, and strode towards the mist. At this time, Luzaoki had already cancelled Jiangang, because the others had no choice. Then came Zhao Sueking. She glanced at Luzaoki, and then slowly faced the mist. But Luzaoki's clear voice came to her ears, low and sexy, "Wait for me at home." She paused for a moment, resisting the thought of turning her head and giving him a look, and entered the mist. At this point, all teams except Forbidden Peak have been eliminated. However, the accident happened at this moment. Because the fog that swallowed Zhao Sueking did not stop, it was still spreading toward Luzaoki and the others at an extremely fast speed. Even faster. Zhang Yang and Lu Yang, who were standing not far behind Zhao Sueking, didn't even react and were swallowed up by the fog one after another. Zhang Yang, Lu Yang. Li Leiban and Lin Qingqing suddenly exclaimed. Li Leiban was the closest and wanted to reach out to pull Zhang Yang, but before he could, Zhang Yang disappeared from sight. And the mist is close at hand. He was so frightened that he quickly backed away as fast as he could, and was behind Luzaoki almost instantly, looking at the mist with lingering fear. I don't know why, but seeing this completely unreasonable white mist, he seemed to be facing some savage beast, which was frightening. Luzioki's pupils shrank when she saw this. His first reaction was, is there still a sixth child? As long as the number of teams in the barrier is different, the fog will not stop. But then he shook his head confidently. Unless someone is hiding under his nose without being discovered by him, there can't be another team. In fact, it's no wonder Luzioki is so confident. Before that, he had used his immortal sword gang to plow the entire field from the inside out to the end. He was sure that there were no other old six teams, so he lifted the Jiangang barrier. And the outside of the barrier has long been swallowed up by the fog. In this case, if there is still a team that can hide it from him, then why not give up the number one spot to the other team? The problem is that this is simply not possible. After all possibilities have been eliminated, no matter how incredible the remainder is, it is the truth. The scheming frog keeps touching your belly, something is wrong with the Sun Yao warrior who controls the barrier. In other words, the traitor finally showed his true identity. The reason why the fog in the barrier does not stop is also very simple, that is, he wants to use this method to control all the contestants in the barrier. It's unknown what will happen if you fall into the fog, but one thing is certain, that is, these adventurers who were eliminated by the fog must not have escaped from the enchantment, but are still within the enchantment. In other words, even without the cultist speed, the traitor still couldn't sit still and was ready to take action. What should we do now? Lin Qingqing and Li Leiban looked solemnly and asked Luzioki in a low voice. What should I do? Salad. Luzioki said angrily. At this moment, he was shocked and angry. He never expected that the traitor would dare to do such a thing under the eyes of other Sun Yao adventurers. There's nothing you can do. Since you don't abide by the rules of the game, don't blame me for being rude and turning the table over for you. Luzioki decided to show off her cards and stopped pretending. He shouted, "Come to me." Outside the barrier, the arena was already in an uproar. When the game reached the final stage, the screen in the barrier suddenly began to become blurry, then flickered, and finally turned completely black. This made the Adventurers Guild, the organizer, very anxious. They were sweating profusely and jumping up and down, but they couldn't find the reason. But the atmosphere among the 9 Sun Yao powerhouses on the stage immediately solidified. As the creator and actual controller of the barrier, no one knows what's going on better than them. A sneer appeared on Wang Yanran's elegant face, and she said lightly, "I finally couldn't bear it anymore." She gestured behind her, and someone immediately came down to the stage and started making arrangements. Suddenly, a group of heavily armed soldiers emerged from all around and began to politely ask everyone to leave in an orderly manner. The commotion on the field suddenly became more serious, but facing this group of amiable faces, everyone could only vent their emotions loudly and did not dare to show any resistance, no matter how dissatisfied they were. The execution of this group of teams is pretty scary. The venue with hundreds of thousands of people was emptied out in a very short period of time. The time spent going back and forth was no more than half an hour. The 9 people on the stage sat motionless. After everyone on the field had left, Wang Yanran sighed and said calmly, "Tell me, who is involved? Do you want to stand up yourself or let me beat you one by one before admitting it?" In the realm of Sun Yao, there is naturally a distinction between superior and inferior. It was obvious that Wang Yanran, who could say such words in such a tone, was undoubtedly a woman at the top of the Sun-level food chain. At this time, the most powerful man from the United States, with blonde hair and blue eyes, said in a very sinister tone, as a great prophet who has been promoted to the realm of the sun through prophecy, "Don't you notice something is wrong?" The great prophet he refers to is undoubtedly Wang Yanran. Wang Yanran didn't even raise her eyelids, she just looked at the other silent, burly man with contempt. This was the Sun Yao representative of the OU League. She said slowly, "Aren't you going to confess? Collude with cultists, invade the military base of the Dragon Kingdom, and modify the rules of the enchantment. As a sunshine adventurer, you shoulder the heavy responsibility of maintaining world peace, but you do such a thing. What are your intentions? What do you want? The burly man smiled. Of course it's to subvert this dirty, hypocritical, and disgusting world. As he spoke, he stood up suddenly and shouted, "Do it!" The next moment, the 8 people on the field took action almost at the same time after this shout. But what surprised Wang Yanran was that almost everyone attacked her and another old man from the Dragon Kingdom with an ancient face and white hair and beard. But Chen Changsheng, who is known as the #1 sword in the Dragon Kingdom, stood silently and did not move. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 359. When masters of the same level compete with each other, the winner can be determined almost instantly. What's more, the other party is caught off guard, using more to bully the less. The old man with white hair from the Dragon Kingdom was beaten so hard that he vomited blood almost instantly and retreated. He slowly fell to the ground and lost his fighting ability. This old man is not an adventurer who is good at fighting. His name is Lu Zhenhua. He was originally from a peasant family, but later caught up with the wave of the Great Era and became the second top powerhouse in the Dragon Kingdom to break through to the sun. Perhaps because of his bloodline, his innate ability is inseparable from dealing with plants. It is precisely because of this that he is not suitable for fighting people head-on. In fact, in the same era, his talent was not superior, and there were many people who were stronger and faster in cultivation than him. However, these people were ultimately stuck in the Moonlight Realm's understanding of the power of rules. Lu Zhenhua was different. He practiced diligently under the moonlight, and his progress could only catch up with the progress of his peers. After breaking through the Moonlight Realm, he jumped into the sky with great momentum and entered without any setbacks. Sunlight Realm. And he was able to suddenly emerge and become the first adventurer of Sun Yao because his natural ability greatly enhanced the understanding of the law. The talent is called, Tao follows nature. He can interact with all things in the world to accelerate his understanding of the rules. Of course, this is not without cost. You must know that when you step into the ranks of adventurers, a person's lifespan will be greatly increased, but he still looks like an old man. This is the price paid for overusing his natural abilities. Chen Changsheng, you. Lu Zhenhua vomited blood and looked at the expressionless and motionless Dragon Kingdom sword god Chen Changsheng with a look of disbelief on his face. His lips trembled and he could not utter a complete sentence. Chen Changsheng glanced at Lu Zhenhua's grey face, and finally there was some fluctuation in his eyes, and he said slightly apologetically, "I'm sorry, Master Lu. But they gave too much." The reason why Chen Changsheng called Lu Zhenhua his master was because he was able to break through to the Sun Yao realm, probably because Lu Zhenhua helped him regardless of the cost. Lu Zhenhua's natural abilities are not only useful to himself, but also to others. The only difference is that the price will be higher. Otherwise, how could Chen Changsheng break through the bottleneck of moonlight to sunrise and become one of the most popular masters in the world in a short period of time, when his original source was at a loss and his vitality was severely damaged? Therefore, Chen Changsheng has always been very grateful to Lu Zhenhua and respectfully calls him half-master. However, Lu Zhenhua would never have thought that the powerful Sun Yao man created by the Dragon Kingdom with all its national strength would actually betray his country. The sword god that he trusted so much would betray him for profit. Lu Zhenhua's eyes almost burst into flames. If looks could kill, Chen Changsheng would definitely be cut to pieces by him. However, even though he is a strong man in the sun, he cannot do this before he masters the power of relevant rules. So he could only watch angrily as Chen Changsheng stood by and watched other Sun Yao experts besiege Wang Yanran. Faced with the siege of the 7 top experts, Wang Yanran remained motionless. She just faintly uttered the word disperse. All the moves containing infinite power disappeared before they could reach her. Follow the law. This is the specialty of Wang Yanran, a powerful Sun Yao warrior. After neutralizing everyone's joint attack, Wang Yanran just raised her feet slightly and instantly appeared behind Miguel Rieo, who was acting strangely at first. Death, she pointed out. Although the others had all come together to help him resist Wang Yanran's harm when he shouted, the woman's attack was really weird and unpredictable, despite everyone's combined efforts. No one would like to have such a strong man on top of their head forever who can't see the depth. The world's first master of prophecy, the first master of occult arts, the first battle mage, and the first conjurer. You old man, you are so ignorant. Because the enemy they faced was the first peerless powerhouse in the world to break through to the solstice that could not be guessed by common sense. Let's get back to the main text of the book and get back to the topic. On the contrary, now that I have you, I can spare my time to take care of you. Therefore, this incident seems to have been caused by the cultists who colluding with several Sun Yao powerhouses for huge profits. There is no change in the whole person except for the increasingly terrifying strength. I'm not in the way, just leave me alone and concentrate on fighting these guys with ulterior motives. So no one knows where her limits are. After Wang Yanran struck, he dodged again and appeared behind Lu Zhenhua. With a touch of his hand, clear light poured into his old body. As he spoke, he cheered up and looked like he was rolling up his sleeves to help Wang Yanran share the firepower. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have raised your hand and let you lie on the ground and be a spectator. Without you in the way, wouldn't this girl feel relaxed and comfortable facing these people? With the support of her strength, Lu Zhenhua's expression was slightly shaken, and he regained some color. He quickly said, "What's more, as long as she is here, the world will always be dominated by the Dragon Kingdom, and there will be no possibility for other countries to compete in separate divisions." Seeing this, Wang Yanran could only shake her head slightly, looking slightly helpless. The strangest thing is her age and personality. Therefore, the entire Dragon Kingdom knew that there was such a powerful Sun Yao warrior, but they did not know what her achievements and abilities were. Of course, almost no one except their circle knew the secret. Several foreign Sun Yao adventurers did not dare to be careless in the face of such opponents. Even if the target of the attack was not them, once Wang Yanran found a breakthrough, even if they were 7 of them, they would still be defeated. And Wang Yanran was also surprised. The blonde and blue-eyed Sun Yao warrior suddenly felt like he was dead, and shouted sternly, "Come and help me." Actually, he should have spoken the language of his own country after all. What he said subconsciously should be the language he is most familiar with, but Xiao Poja is really too lazy to translate it, and you don't like to read it, so forget it and just think he speaks eagle language. After all, the country brags about how powerful its Sun Yao warriors are, so how can they raise others' ambitions and destroy their own prestige? She smiled and said, "Old man Lu, it seems that you are really old and your bones are failing. You can't even cope with such a small scene. Can't you see that you are the biggest liability on the field?" Those more than 100 years have not left any trace on her face. You go and rest first. He still failed to do his best, which caused the Jinfa man to be severely injured. In real terms, she is at least over 100 years old, but she still acts like a little girl, laughing and scolding on the surface. Wang Yanran pointed out, and the Jinfa man who was regarded as the target suddenly felt as if he was struck by lightning, and fell down screaming with smoke all over his body. She actually didn't like having her name publicized outside, and even asked the state to suppress her identity. In fact, when I think about it, I can only say that it's terrifying if you think about it carefully. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 360. In fact, These days, those who dared to take action had no intention of letting Wang Yanran and Lu Zhenhua escape alive. In other words, the purpose of their trip was to get rid of these two people. A Wang Yanran whose strength is unknown can be said to be a serious concern to all countries. The other Lu Zhenhua, although his strength is not very good, is extremely talented. As long as he is willing to spend money, he can continuously train new Sun Yao warriors for the Dragon Kingdom, so that this dragon can rise into the sky and travel around the nine heavens. Continuous delivery of fresh blood. How could these people sit back and watch this happen? As long as these two people die, there will only be one young swordsman left in the Dragon Kingdom. That will not be a serious loss of vitality, but nothing to be afraid of at all. At that time, even if the authorities investigate, they can completely blame the whole thing on the cultists and completely pluck themselves out. Even though the Dragon Kingdom was extremely doubtful and unwilling to accept the outcome, facing the combined power of many countries, it could only bite its teeth and swallow it. It was even said that if their best plan to unite with the cultists hadn't been destroyed by Lu Zioqi's mistake, they would have been able to get rid of Wang Yanran and Lu Zhenhua without any blood, without even risking exposure. After a brief conversation, the two parties regained their strength and fought again. Lu Zhenhua received Wang Yanran's buff and managed to regain some of his skills. With his mind on guard and determination, he was able to fight with the opponent. The main reason is that he is risking his life, and the advantage is in the opponent's hands, so others cannot be stupid enough to forcefully switch with him. Although the seven sons here are temporarily united by common interests, they have different positions after all, and each has their own evil intentions, which is quite a bit of a waste of effort. The next moment, an extremely pure and powerful power of rules spread from her body, almost instantly wrapping everyone present and forcibly dragging them to another small world. Only Lu Zhenhua was left standing on the spot. Here Lu Zhenhua and Jin Fanan were evenly matched, and Wang Yanran on the other side also showed off his power, with 1 against 6, and pressed a group of Sun Yao strong men to the ground and rubbed them. After saying that, a sharp sword shot into the sky, directly forcing Wang Yanran back hundreds of steps. Facing a strong person of Wang Yanran's level, even if they are Sun Yao strong people, they have to use some means to disturb her mind. Once they are really allowed to show their due strength, she, Wang Yanran, is fearless, but the tens of millions of people in the imperial capital will suffer. Although Jin Fanan cursed in his heart, he could only grit his teeth and persist. As she said that, she floated in mid-air, but then she sat down with her heart raised to the sky, and solemnly said, "Field, open." As the old saying goes, attack the city first, attack the heart first. As she shouted these words, everyone's expression suddenly changed. After a few of his teammates deal with Wang Yanran, this old guy will naturally have nothing to fear. Although Lu Zhenhua is old, basic combat experience is indispensable for surviving to this day. He naturally understands that it is better to break one finger than to injure 10, so he specifically picked this traumatized blonde man to pursue and beat him. But soon, Wang Yanran regained her composure, just snorted coldly, and said proudly, "Don't even think about it." Chen Changshen's expression changed slightly, he looked at Wang Yanran with some confusion, and sighed, "Well, now that I have chosen this path, there is no possibility of looking back. Yes, there are still monsters and monsters that haven't emerged yet. Lu Zhenhua. In other words, although I have realized it, I still can't do anything about it." He was still a little confused at first, but when he turned around and saw the barrier that was still operating stably without the Sun Yao powerhouse on the field, the expression on his face suddenly began to change unpredictably. After all, there were only a handful of people who could conceal such a shocking plot from her perception. She had already made plans in her mind, but she had spent a lot of energy on dealing with the current situation, so she could only put her mind on it and be careful. With this opportunity to breathe, several Sun Yao warriors breathed a sigh of relief, and couldn't help but reveal ferocious smiles on their faces. They moved their wrists one after another, rubbed their fists and said, "Now you can fight with your arms and legs free." And this is exactly the purpose of these people saying these words. Fortunately, Lu Jianhua picked him. If he were to face Wang Yanran, he had no confidence that he could defeat Wang Yanran. Although this old guy was fighting desperately, he was not as mysterious as Wang Yanran. The unpredictable method is still more than one step behind. Even those who are strong in the sun do not have extra time to react. The reason why she chose to fight with everyone in close combat was to prevent these guys from using their ultimate moves unscrupulously. In fact, if Wang Yanran hadn't seen Lu Jianhua bent on risking his life and creating an even situation with this blonde man, she was afraid that after she took advantage of her and killed Jin Fanan, Lu Jianhua would be beaten to death by others. She would have faced the slut a long time ago. The man with the golden method gave him 2 harsh blows, letting him know what it means to offend a woman. The worst thing was that Jin Fanan, who had just been seriously injured by Wang Yanran with one finger. He took out 2 bottles of recovery potion and drank it while he was looking for a break. He barely recovered to some extent, but Lu Jianhua stared at him and bit him like a mad dog. "Don't let go." But Lu Jianhua was present, so she could only keep an eye on the remaining 6 people, and also be wary of the guys who didn't take action in the dark. So brave. In the end, he could only sigh and step forward. After all, she, Wang, is very vindictive. You know, the power of a Sun Yao strongman is much more powerful than that of He Ping. Among them, the Sun Yao strongman who had a good life was the first to be unable to withstand the pressure and shouted at the sword god Chen Changsheng, who was watching the show with his hands folded, "Why are you still standing there? If you don't take action, let them escape by then and they will suffer but you." It is worth mentioning that as the level of adventurers increases, the effectiveness of most supplies will gradually decrease, especially at the stage of Sun Yao. The effect of irregular props on them is almost negligible. "Wait for me, I haven't gotten in the car yet." Wang Yanran's expression changed when she heard this.